be able to take it sort of all the way to decide which ones you're going to do, okay? Before we go into this, I do want to go into a little bit of vocabulary based on what you've been doing. That way you can start speaking a little bit of the math lingo. If you see it in a direction, you'll know what they're talking about, especially on like state testing and things like that. So like we're going to start with vocabulary. Your first one is binomial. And when you see binomial, I want you to think bicycle, because a bicycle has two wheels. So a binomial has two terms. In other words, you could have like an x plus 3 or x squared minus 16. In other words, all of the difference of squares, all of the cubes from last night were all binomials because they had two different pieces. Okay. The second vocabulary is the trinomial. Trinomial, I want you to think of a tricycle, and that has 3 wheels, so a trinomial has 3 terms. And these are going to be your like x squared plus 4x plus 8. Those are your AC methods. And then finally we have our last one, which really we could have done first, but it's not really used a lot, so that's why we stuck it at the bottom. And that's the monomial. That means that I have one term, and those are kind of boring. So like x, 5, 2x squared, all of those are monomials. So what I want you to think of is every time you, pull out a GCF, you're pulling out a monomial in math language. So like I said, just a little bit of vocabulary before we go into our main part. And that again is just so that no matter what kind of test gets thrown at you, you can read it and then know what they're talking about. Okay, now you ready? When we say to factor completely, that means that we are going to factor using any method until we can't anymore. But at this point you have 5 different ways that we factor. And so what I'd like to do is give you sort of a little flow chart to look at the order in which you're going to look at them and to how to make decisions based off of which ones you're going to use to factor. So the order that we factor. The very first one that you should be looking for is what? GCF. GCF comes first. You might not have one, but you need to look for that first before you move on to everything else. And you need to remember that if you have a negative in the front, then that GCF is going to be a -1. Because it's going to mess up most of your formulas from there. Exactly. Sure. From here, we have a couple of options based on what my problem looks like. So your first option is if you have a binomial. In other words, if you only have 2 terms sitting there, 2 things that are sitting there waiting for you. From there, you need to look and say, okay, do I do I have cubes? If you have squares, then you do the difference of squares. If you have cubes, you have another decision to make. And that is you're either going to be doing the difference of cubes, or you're going to be doing the sum of cubes, depending on if it's a plus or a minus. If you don't have either, so neither one, then you're done. You only did a GCF, and that's fine. Your next one, I don't know why I made that arrow so big. Your next one is if you have a trinomial. Very specifically, you have to have ax squared plus bx plus c. If you don't, then you're done. If you have ax squared plus bx plus c, then you're doing a C method. And we're sort of just going to put like a little dot, dot, dot at the end of this flowchart, because you'll pick up the last factoring method in the spring when we do bigger problems. So on everything that you're doing for today's assignment, I want you to go through and start at the top. Do I have a GCF? If not, then we move. If we do, pull it out and then we move. Okay? But you're going through all of the rest of it. Does that make sense? All right.